Here's how neglected the child care system in the United States has been. Since people realized during the pandemic that child care is critical for people to work, the government has poured billions of dollars into it. Yet still, the shortage of daycare spots is dire. In St. Lawrence County's only city, for example, there is no major child care center. And so an agency better known for bridges and factories is investing in child care. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Pearsall Wealth Management at UBS Wealth Management USA, subsidiary UBS AG, member FINRA SIPC, 1 Broad Street, Glens Falls.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Monday, July 10th. First up, heavy rain yesterday and today has caused severe damage in the Northeast. In New York, at least one person has died. A woman in her 30s was swept away and killed by floodwaters in the Hudson Valley. The National Weather Service has issued a flash flood warning for much of the Champlain Valley through this evening. Governor Kathy Hochul spoke at a press conference in Orange County today, where roads and bridges were washed away by the floodwaters.
Homeowners need to be prepared. You need to think about your escape route. You need to anticipate the worst-case scenario where the floodwaters are rising in your home. What are your next steps?
Hochul urged New Yorkers to have food, water, and medicine stocked up in case of an emergency. New York has seen record-breaking weather events in the last year, including the Buffalo blizzard that left 47 people dead and hazardous air conditions from Canadian wildfires. Hochul compared Monday's flooding to those two climate events.
My friends, this is the new normal. And we in government, working with our partners on the ground, have to work with our communities to build up resiliency, to be prepared for the worst because the worst continues to happen.
Driving through high water is dangerous. Clinton County Emergency Services Director Eric Day says drivers shouldn't disobey road crews blocking off flooded roads.
A lot of folks come up on a road, a given road that the highway department has put cones and barricades across because there's water in the road, and they look at it and say, well, that doesn't look that bad. They'll drive around the cones and try to drive through it.
6 inches of water is enough to cause loss of control, and a foot of water will float most cars, according to the National Weather Service. Vermont has also been hit hard by flooding. Roads and bridges have been washed away, and according to Vermont Public, at least 10 families have been evacuated from floodwaters in the southwestern part of the state. St. Lawrence County, and every other county in the North Country, really, have long been child care deserts, with far more children than spots in daycare. In Ogdensburg, there are a handful of home-based daycares, but in a city of 10,000 people, there isn't a single major child care center. But that might be changing soon. The Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority is working on building a center that would serve hundreds of families. As Amy Feiereisel reports, it's a big and somewhat unusual move for an agency known for infrastructure and industry.
The Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority started talking about building a child care center in early 2021. Because of COVID, meetings happened over Zoom.
Breaking up a little bit. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great, Tony.
I'll keep talking.
Now you're in and out.
Over 2 years later, that project is moving forward. They recently celebrated a $2.1 million federal grant. They'll need about 3 times that, but it's enough to start planning. Senator Gillibrand helped secure the grant. She spoke at a press conference in late June in Ogdensburg.
Childcare is really important for our communities. It's also really important for our economy. It's important so that people can go to work, so they can create businesses, so they can provide for their families, and so that our children get access to that really good early childhood education, which makes the difference between succeeding and not for many, many children.
The Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority will use the federal grant to build a 15,000 square foot child care center at its Commerce Park in downtown Ogdensburg. It'll be public, not just for their employees, and they hope to open in the fall of 2025. This will be one of the largest childcare facilities in the North Country, and it's an especially big deal for Ogdensburg.
The current childcare situation is really not sustainable, and it's extremely detrimental to the community's workforce.
That's Stephen Lawrence, the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority's executive director.
By constructing a new childcare facility, family members and legal guardians will be free to join the workforce again in helping new businesses attract employees and grow economically.
Now, why the OBPA? Lawrence gets that question a lot. After all, they're known for running the Bridge to Canada, the local airport, the railroad. Lawrence's answer is this: they're also an economic development organization, and someone has to do it.
With a lot of things, especially things that are public projects, you need somebody that is going to shepherd that through. And the OBPA, we're not going to walk away from it.
He says they've got the space and they know how to build and manage facilities.
What we wanted to do is, with property that we have in our Commerce Park, is to build the facility and find a partner that could operate that.
They found that partner in the ARC Jefferson St. Lawrence, a social services organization that already runs a preschool in Jefferson County. They'll operate the Ogdensburg Center when it opens.
I actually reached out to them and said, I see that you're doing this.
That's Lynn Petrosky, the ARC CEO.
And it just seemed to be a good fit that we could provide services for children because we knew that there was a need.
Petrosky says the center will be able to serve 125 kids and create a minimum of 25 new jobs. This is an enormous change in childcare capacity for the area.
You know, if you run 12 months and students graduate, I say graduate into kindergarten, on average throughout the year, you could probably touch 300 families.
Now, a childcare project of this scope, with an industrial organization driving it, this is unusual, and it signals a bigger shift in how wider society thinks about childcare. This is economic leaders treating childcare like an economic driver, no longer just something for families, particularly women, to figure out on their own. Petrosky says they don't see investments like the one the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority is making very often.
It's been amazing. They're very forward-thinking to think this and then to partner with someone like a nonprofit organization to do such a thing.
Now, this isn't a done deal quite yet. $2.1 million isn't enough. The OBPA is still gathering funds. They have several other large grants pending, but they're also committing around $1.6 million from their own budget to the project. Stephen Lawrence from the OBPA says this is one of the best ways that the organization could think of to stimulate the local economy.
We feel that a kickstart of the workforce is really important to growing new business and fostering overall economic well-being of the area.
He's imagining an Ogdensburg where families have easy access to childcare, an Ogdensburg that can even attract new workers more readily. He also admits it's a little personal. His first grandchildren, twins, were just born.
You know, I became a grandfather a little older than I wanted to, but anyway, I'm happy with that. But also I can see what my children are going to be facing.
It shouldn't be so hard, says Lawrence, to have a family and be able to work. Amy Feiereisel, North Country Public Radio.
We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Alan Dunham of South Glens Falls and Bee Children of Canton. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.